Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Harry Fling Wrestling. I am your host, Harry Fling, and today's topic of the day is play-by-play announcers and color commentators. What a significant role they play in the world of professional wrestling. And what I'm going to do here is talk about some of my favorites in both respects. I have my 8 play-by-play announcers that I like, and 8 color commentators that I like, but no particular order. It's not a top 8 list or anything like that. This is just me talking candidly, in my opinion. So, before we get into that, though, let's talk about what is the role of each announcer. Pardon me. So the play-by-play announcer, their role, the purpose of their job, is to call the action in the ring move for move. Now, going way back, you go back to like the 1940s or 50s, maybe even further back, I don't know. And you'd hear these announcers and you'd hear them calling the action this sort of monotone voice. And it looks like he's taking him down in a headlock there. And he's got a reverse chin lock. And he's running him off the ropes. And he's bringing him right down. And that's something you could easily fall asleep to. So you got to have a little more excitement than that. And this was back in the days when it was black and white TV and everybody dressed alike in the same trunks and boots, whatever. They also need to have knowledge of the maneuvers being presented in the ring. Ideally, they should know every single move, but they don't. Not all of them do. The best example is, and this one did not age well, is Mike Adamle from 2008. He was the play-by-play guy who replaced Joey Styles on ECW on Sci-Fi on Tuesday nights. And Mike Adamle had come from the world of American Gladiators, where all the announcing was pre-taped, so he was not used to working in front of a live camera. So his first night on the job, he was a backstage interviewer for Raw. Joey Styles was still on ECW, hadn't moved on to his WWE.com chat room job, or whatever the heck Styles was doing back then in '08. So, we get to the 2008 Royal Rumble, and the first thing we notice is Mike Adamle called Jeff Hardy Jest Harvey. And he's waiting in eagerly with anticipation. His name is Jest Harvey. Hardy. And then he calls the WWE Championship in another promo WEDF WWE Championship. The mistakes go on and on. By the time he gets to ECW, it gets worse. Now, I don't like to bring up this example because Mike Adamle currently has dementia. Or it might be Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a form of dementia, just to clarify that. So he, unfortunately, his mind is, he no longer has his faculties in that respect and was forced into an early retirement. And I met Mike Adamle back in 2014 at Legends of the Ring in Monroe Township, New Jersey. And I asked him about it. He's like, that was supposed to be my role, playing that character. I don't think he wanted to admit that he actually wasn't that good at his job. But deep down, he's like the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He gave me an autograph for free, and he wrote, "Tell this guy to shut up." It's a picture of him talking with the ECW microphone. And so anyways, they finally had the gumption to get Adamle out of the announce booth, and they made him GM, but we're not here to talk about that. So you have to have knowledge of what you're talking about, and sometimes they don't always. They'll say a nice maneuver or something, and you'll see it happen. And as I've been a wrestling fan coming up on 30 years this month, I don't know every single move there is. I mean, I'll know a move when I see it, but I might not know the name every single time, especially if it's newer stuff being invented. So, you really have to pick up on this stuff on the fly, and that's the credit I give to the play-by-play guys. You also have to be unbiased. You can't pick sides. And when we talk about color commentators, we'll talk about biases. You also have to carry the broadcast. You're the leader if you're the play-by-play announcer. They're the leaders at the announce table. So, you're the voice of the evening, basically. Unless it's a dual-branded or tri-branded show, which happened in years past, but now they keep it to one announce team for simplicity's sake. Now, the color commentator, on the other hand, has to provide insight into the match and/or ongoing feud. So they don't necessarily call the action. That's play-by-play. Color, they'll talk about what led up to this match that's happening tonight and what's been going on all these weeks. They mostly take the side of the heel wrestlers. Historically, color commentators have always sided with the heels, though there are some that have sided with the faces. So that's where the biases differ here between play-by-play and color commentary. They are usually very biased. Jesse Ventura, who we'll talk about, is a perfect example there, so we're going to circle back to that. The color commentary role is not just for the color commentator, him or herself, but it can be open to guests in different matches. So like if two guys are in a match and then there's this other guy who's actually feuding with one of the two guys in the match, they'll join ringside for commentary. Guest commentary is great. Guys like Shawn Michaels, Owen Hart. Who else used to do guest commentary every now and again? Ken Shamrock. CM Punk in later years. I'm just throwing out names that I've watched over the years. No particular order or anything, so don't take it so seriously. So now let's get into the people that I like from play-by-play. My favorite of all time in the play-by-play role is none other than Vincent Kennedy McMahon. When I was a kid, Vince McMahon was the lead play-by-play announcer on Monday Night Raw, even on Superstars and all the pay-per-views up until the 1997 Survivor Series because of Montreal, obviously. So Vince, one of the reasons I loved Vince so much, he was very matter-of-fact. He got straight to the point. His tone and inflection in his voice just really was. It's like he didn't sound rehearsed at all. He got this down to a science. In the early '70s, I want to say he started doing it when his dad was still in the wrestling business and owned the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. Vincent James McMahon. So he got in the business because of his dad, and his dad didn't really want him in the business, and that's another story. But that's how the announcing thing stuck. And it wasn't until 1982 Vince bought the company from his father, and he was the owner, the chairman of the board this whole time. But I didn't know it. Remember, I was only 6 when I started watching, and I kind of maybe the summer '97 I started to see Vince McMahon kind of feuding with the likes of like Bret Hart and mostly Bret Hart because Bret was pushing Vince around. Where this is the start of the Attitude Era, where they're really blurring the lines between reality and storytelling. So Vince, he had so many isms there. Like some of the stuff he said, I have to find it. I texted my friend about this recently. He would say things like, "What a maneuver! Oh, a boot to the midsection. Notwithstanding his credentials that we alluded to earlier, he is certainly a one-of-a-kind superstar on the roster. Anything can happen here in the World Wrestling Federation. Marty Jannetty, very calm and collected, going up in his match against Goldust here tonight. Certainly an unusual, bizarre individual this Goldust character is. Not to mention Mankind, the deranged one. See how quickly he's speaking, and he's not stopping in his speeches, and he keeps going on and on and on. But it's a voice that's very good to listen to. Very direct, on point, matter of fact, and it just all this time I didn't know he was really pulling the strings backstage, and because you just thought he was just this mild-mannered play-by-play announcer, mild-mannered commentator. So you'd have no idea, and he always wore a tuxedo for pay-per-views, and always wore this elegant navy blue suit with the gold WWF block logo emblazoned on the left here. And he did that for Monday Night Raw and tuxedos for pay-per-views. Vince was always a sharply dressed man, always was on point with everything. And once he became the owner, that was a different story. And then this, as far as his personal stuff, like the allegations within the last year or so, I'm not going to get into that here. I don't think if in fact he did do that stuff, I think it's wrong on all levels, just to clarify here. So I'm actually glad Vince is no longer affiliated with WWE. But as a commentator, I'll always respect the work that he did at the announce table, at that desk. And in saying this, I also think the best color commentator is Jerry the King Lawler. Vince and Jerry were the best duo, in my opinion, when I started watching. So I was sad to see Vince step away. But Jim Ross did a hell of a job. He's actually next on our list here for play-by-play announcers. Good old JR Jim Ross from Norman, Oklahoma. JR sort of had this dry delivery, and if you never heard JR talk, well, just go watch any match from the Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression, or even AEW in the last few years. This is sort of how he talks here. It's going to be a slobber knocker. He's goofy as a pet coon. He's being whipped like a government mule. And unfortunately, Jim Ross suffered an affliction called Bell's palsy, where, as he said, the left side of my face, left eye doesn't open up all the way. When he did that work shoot in September 96, he alluded to his Bell's palsy and claimed that Vince McMahon fired him February the 11th, 1994. Called him up to Stamford, Connecticut to fire him, which he was in fact fired, but I don't think it was because of the Bell's palsy. I mean, that's discrimination right there. So Vince could actually get sued if he did fire him on those grounds. But Jim Ross, I believe, business was so bad back in the mid-90s, I'm sure it was budget cuts that they got rid of him. So McMahon and Ross always had a tumultuous relationship. But Ross still worked for McMahon And he and Jerry Lawler did a fine job. Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression Era, and then they kind of got separated once the PG era came along and JR got sick again and then took a lighter schedule. Now he's in AEW. Or maybe not. I don't watch a lot of AEW, so forgive me if my knowledge there isn't great. So Jim Ross was great, and he ventured into his barbecue sauce venture, but this is neither here nor there. Gorilla Monsoon. Now, I missed out on this because I wasn't a fan in the 80s. I was born in 89, so I've watched old tapes. Oh my god, nobody gets you excited more than Gorilla Monsoon. Oh, what a happening this is! This place is going bananas! Oh, he hit him right in the breadbasket! That's the pursuit... What was that word? Occipital, particular... I'll look it up later. Let me look this up real quick. Give me a second, guys. Some monsoon isms. I've been looking up isms for all these guys, so I have to find this out or it's going to kill me. Gorilla Monsoon quotes. The pertubular occipital region, I think he used to call it. Will you stop? Will you be serious? Well executed downstairs in the breadbasket. He doesn't have that applied properly. He doesn't have $20 worth of clothing, including the watch. Right in the kisser. These are just quotes that he would have said here and there. Excedrin headache number 35. What else? When he was talking about the brain, occipital pertubular or something like that. I'm not going to waste time with that. I want to move on. But he was always alluding to color commentator, Bobby the Brain Heenan, when he said, will you stop? Will you be serious? Or he'd say something funny, kind of casual off the cuff. If Bobby Heenan made a remark about somebody, he'd say, and you resemble that remark, don't you? So go watch old primetime wrestling from late 80s, early 90s when they were at the desk inside the studio at Stanford. Oh, great stuff. Another great play-by-play, and he's still with us today after 28 years. Michael Cole. Now, he had a little bit of a rocky start. We're going to circle back to him because he's unusual in that he's the only play-by-play announcer that I know of that turned heel, but still maintained his job. Now, when Vince turned heel, exposing himself as the owner of the company, he quit the whole play-by-play thing altogether. But Michael Cole, he kept on doing it. Now, Michael Cole didn't have the greatest wrestling knowledge. He was a friend of Todd Pettengill's. When Pettengill decided to leave WWF in the summer of 97, he recommended his good friend Michael Cole. They knew each other from radio days. Michael Cole was a war correspondent during the Gulf War and Desert Storm, I believe. And his best commentary, and I was at this event, so I didn't get to hear it till I watched the tape back later, was SummerSlam 02 in the main event with Rock and Brock Lesnar. A great move by The Rock, and it's really telling what he's able to do here in this match. And Michael Cole used to get so excited. I can't believe what The Undertaker's doing now to the Big Boss Man. Oh man, I never get those frosted tips. That was such a look in the early 2000s. And he had this denim blue Attitude Era button-down shirt. His blue jeans. Oh my god, he looks so hip. He was trying to be a Backstreet Boy. I remember NSYNC. Alright, who else we got? Lord Alfred Hayes, going back to the 80s. All the way from Great Britain, Lord Alfred Hayes could bring a lot of class to the commentary table. He was mostly a backstage interviewer, but if you listen to him various matches from like primetime wrestling, they'd go to various house show arenas and he'd do the pre-tape. He'd talk over, he'd provide the commentary. As the match was going on there, him and Sean Mooney, well, your lordship, what do you think about this? I don't know, quite frankly. I've not seen this man in action here. And then he'd always do this laugh that'd go, Lord Alfred Hayes phased out. Sadly, he's no longer with us. Another great name worth mentioning, Josh Matthews. I believe he's in AEW now. He was in TNA last decade and hasn't been seen in WWE since 2014. He left in the spring or summer of 2014. Josh was a contestant, a runner-up on Tough Enough 1, real name Josh Lomberger, but then he adopted the name Matthews. I guess it's a better stage name for what it's worth. He started out doing Velocity, which was SmackDown's B show, aired on Saturday nights on the new TNN. Him and Ernest the Cat Miller were a team until the Cat left, and then Bill DeMott took over. Josh was always excited, too, like a young Michael Cole. What do we think we got in action tonight here, Cat? Oh, I don't know, Josh. It's going to be a great one here. Or if he was talking to Bill DeMott. Well, Josh, the action's going to look great here. Sorry, I can't really differentiate the two. Forgive me. Josh had a good delivery. He started out not knowing what he was talking about or kind of apprehensive in his role, but I think he got better over time. He used to do the pre-shows for the pay-per-views. And then he actually got to call part of WrestleMania 27, which we're going to talk about kind of towards the end of this video as it pertains to Michael Cole and Jerry the King Lawler, because they needed extra announcers. If you got announcers already feuding, who's going to call the match, right? So we'll circle back to him. Here's a guy that's very underrated, this next person. I don't know if anybody remembers Scott Stanford. I think he lives in Stamford, Connecticut, and his last name is Stanford with an N. I think originally he's from Long Island. He sort of talked like this a little bit. Scott Stanford, I first remember seeing him on the Free-for-All show with Jack Corpella. Jack Corpella was more of a backstage guy. Getting back to Scott Stanford, he used to call the Raw portion of Superstars, sometimes with Matt Stryker or with Josh Matthews. So Josh, Matty, what do you think's going to happen here on this match with Zack Ryder and Heath Slater? Oh, I don't know. Woo, you know it. He's the Long Island IC. I'm often featured on his show there, Z True Long Island Story. I thought he deserved better. Some people say he's bland. I think he was exciting. But he wasn't this kind of excitement. He was more like, because of his accent and his delivery and the way he talked, I think he was sort of nonchalant and dry. So that made him stand out a little bit more, kind of an old school feel. But he worked in the world of ESPN, I think. So he covered more real sports, if you will. Like football, basketball, baseball. He didn't, the WWE stuff I think was like a side job for him. So I don't know that he was under contract full time. So that's why we didn't see a lot of Scott Stanford. So 2010 would have been the first time I saw him. I don't even remember the last time, 2014, 2015. He wasn't heard from so much afterwards, after that time. So I don't know what the hell happened to Scott Stanford. The last play-by-play guy I'm going to cover is somebody that started on NXT and then graduated to the main roster was Tom Phillips. While not a name that stands out so much, Tom Phillips, real name Thomas Hannafin, started out slow, much like Josh Matthews, but he got better over time in his delivery, and he was good enough for the position that he had. And if he'd stuck around, he'd probably be, the next Michael Cole out there. I don't know what they're going to do when Cole decides to retire. I don't want to get too hung up on that, but he could have been what like Joe Tessitore is doing now with Saturday Night's Main Event and SmackDown. Tessitore's on SmackDown, so you don't see him on Raw. Cole's on Raw. But Tom Phillips, he and Corey Graves used to banter quite a bit. I remember watching this like 2014, 2015, 2016 NXT. Corey and Tom. I don't remember any specific lines. It wasn't the greatest time period for the company, so unfortunately, it wasn't all that memorable, but I think, last time I think he could have gone further had he stayed longer. But one thing I remember about Tom is he was, one thing I remember, as far as last time I saw him was probably was WrestleMania 37, the first big event after COVID, post-COVID Mania 2021, and then I think he asked for his release, and that was the last we saw of Mr. Phillips. Now let's get to the color commentators, shall we? Jerry the King Lawler. Oh my God. Where do I begin with him? This year, he's got to be 75 now. I think he'll be 76. He's born in 1949. And I saw him wrestle 4 years ago at NEW, Northeast Wrestling, based out of Poughkeepsie, New York. My brother and I were at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, and he defeated Enzo Amore in a casket match. They were so careful with Jerry. Jerry was like 72, 73 years old at the time, and sort of drop kicks and everything. Oh my God, he had a heart attack on Raw, as we remember. Oh, that was so scary. As far as Jerry Lawler quotes, where the hell do I start here? One quote I remember is from that stupid Huckster and Nacho Man match from the free-for-all of WrestleMania 12. Vince McMahon jokingly, sarcastically says, who do you think's going to win this match? He says, depends. Depends on what? No, depends undergarments. Oh my God. And because, they're supposed to be old versions of Hogan and Savage, it made sense. So I'm going to spit out some Jerry Lawler quotes here. I can't dance. I have 2 left feet. When I go to the beach, I have to wear flip-flips. Hey, if I want to pick up girls, I just do pull-ups. Pull up in a Cadillac, pull up in a Mercedes. Get it? And Lawler's jokes have just a tint of viciousness to them, and this was like the mid-90s. He toned it down a little bit as he turned face. But when he was a heel, he was so ruthless, and probably half the stuff he said 30 years ago may not fly today. He would say stuff like, Mae Young's day job was being a waitress at the Last Supper. This will be the biggest war since David versus Goliath, which I understand Stu and Helen Hart still have their ticket stubs to. Oh, snap, crackle, and pop. The other day I told Stu Hart to start acting his age, so he died. Ooh, that one's actually tasteless. Shouldn't be using that one on here. Gotta get the bleep button out. Andy Kaufman's mom wanted a girl. His father wanted a boy, and they were both satisfied. I don't really get that one. You can look into Sable's eyes and see the back of her head. So-and-so is known to have a way with women. He says it's because he worked so hard on his physique. Let me tell you what a rotten kid Cody Rhodes was growing up. When he was young, he told his mom he wanted a dog for Christmas, and she said no. You'll have turkey like everyone else. Oh, holy shit. I got more wires coming out of me than AT&T. So I'm reading from Reddit right now and other people post because I'm not good at capturing quotes, so I have to go by other sources here. So be that as it may. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Bobby the Brain Heenan as one of the greatest color commentators of all time. Just like with Monsoon, they had great banter, and I'm going to read some of his quotes. The money's the same, whether you earn it or scam it. I'm a legend of this sport. If you don't believe me, ask me. A friend in need is a pest. Oh, he always said that all the time. Could be talking about his own family, the Heenan family. I know all about cheating. I've had 6 very successful marriages. Oh, I like that one. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and Mr. Perfect is a milk bone. I don't look at myself as a hero or smart person. I have a 7th grade education, but I've had a lot of fun. You have a good voice if it ever came out of your throat. No, you'd have a good voice if it ever came out of your throat. There's nothing better than a good blind referee. There's only 2 kinds of music I don't like, country and western. And I'll read one more here. I'm getting carried away. I can't read that one. It's bad. See, some of these are just tasteless because over time, society's so PC now compared to what it used to be. Let's see. Last one here. If you're poor and you do something stupid, you're nuts. If you're rich and do something stupid, you're eccentric. Oh well. Didn't quite go out with a banger, but be that as it may. All right. Another person. Let's do Jesse the Body Ventura. As we're talking about the 80s here, Jesse had a memorable voice. He's from Minnesota. So anytime you've ever met anybody from the upper Midwest, they have that that particular Midwestern accent, very distinct. So Jesse the Body Ventura definitely talked like this. You know, if they're going to try to get that man out of the battle royal, they're going to have to work together to do that. Otherwise, it's not going to work in their favor. He would, let's see. What else? I'm looking this up on Reddit, too. I got this several hours ago. I ain't got time to bleed. That was from the movie Predator. He might have said that as a color commentator. I'm not really sure. I'm the guy who tells it like it is. And every WrestleMania, I'm going to shout out to Terry, Tyrell, and Jade. That's my wife, son, and daughter. Ravishing Rick Rude, the winner of the Jesse the Body Award. Making his way down to the ring now. I think he's going to take the belt from the Ultimate Warrior, Gino. Gino was Gorilla Monsoon. That's what he called him, because his real name was Robert Gene Morella. Give credit where credit is due, Monsoon. I might not like Hulk Hogan, but be that as it may. I don't really care for Chico Santana or Jimmy Snuka for that matter. No, he's get Tito Santana and Jimmy Snuka's names mixed up. Well, not mixed up, but he botched them on purpose. All right, so anyways, don't have enough Jesse Ventura quotes, but his delivery was great too. Delivery's a big thing. You notice that seems to be a resounding theme here. Other people I liked were Paul Heyman, especially that brief time between March of 01 to November of 01 when Jerry the King Lawler left the company after his real-life wife, Stacey Carter, the cat, was let go. Paul Heyman and Jim Ross complemented each other, although I don't think there was a lot of there was great chemistry, but I don't think they really liked each other. Jim Ross didn't like Paul Heyman too much. I don't know how Paul felt about Jim. So, Paul Heyman had this eccentricness about him in more ways than one. ECW and the WCW alliance, they're really going to take down the WWF here. It's my gumption that that's going to happen, and I will see to it that it does. All right, I just made that up. I don't know if he actually really said that. He had a great GM, and he's doing great with managing his new stable here. I like to call them the new Dangerous Alliance. Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed. Matt Stryker. Oh, yes. A lot of people hated him, but I liked Matt. And I met him, too. Legends of the Ring in 2013. I've been to that event 4 times in 2 years. Matt Stryker, because he was a teacher, he had the best speaking voice for this job. And his knowledge, because he was a diehard fan, he knew so much of everything. Matt sort of had this voice here. He's from New York, upstate New York, so he definitely talked. He had a high pitchness to his voice. Can't think of a better word. And notice the pressure on the arm that he's putting on him. And he was more play-by-play than color, but at that point, like around 2009, 2010, the color commentary didn't stand out as much as it once did. So Stryker kind of was there at a not so great time. Look at the pressure of the hold he's got. And let me tell you, this man here's the Duke of Debauchery, the scallywag of skullduggery. And then that really opens the door for many people coming in here to the World Wrestling Entertainment. I don't know. I was a school teacher in New York. But I think he overdid his act. He became more of a smartass over time, and he started to annoy Cole and Lawler. The 3 of them, they were a great threesome. If there was ever a great 3-man announce team, Michael Cole, Jerry the King Lawler, Matt Stryker, from about Survivor Series 09 to Royal Rumble 2011. Then they had to replace Matt Stryker with Booker T. I'm sorry, I don't think Booker T is a great color commentator. He sucks. I can't believe he's even doing it in NXT. All that's funny is Shucky Ducky, quack quack, and that's about it. But Matt Stryker, God, they lost something good with him. I don't have a lot of memorable quotes from Stryker, but go watch any of those matches from 09 to 10, and you'll see. Early 2011, whatever. William Regal was great, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail of him because I talked about him in my last video. He was on NXT Redemption, then he did NXT when it was in Full Sail. Corey Graves, he was kind of forced into this role. In 2014, he suffered an injury on NXT in the summer that year in a match against Sami Zayn, and it was a neck injury that WWE doctors will not clear him from to this day. So Matt Polinsky, Corey Graves' real name, was forced to settle for color commentary, which he excelled at. He knew his stuff. He plays the heel part well. I loved his heel character as a performer, as it reminded me so much of Randy Orton. And he'd come out to this music, and he'd stand right at the ring post, just kind of hang around there. I love that pose he did. He was just kind of nonchalantly looking at you, but he kind of had this glare in his eyes. That's Corey Graves for you. Shane McMahon was great for a brief time when Sunday Night Heat first started. Oh yeah, my pops, Vince McDaddy-O in the house here. Oh yeah, halftime Heat, Rock is going to retain the title against Mankind. Mankind's going down tonight, baby. Oh yeah. Sunday Night Heat was great when Shane McMahon was first there, but as Shane got more involved in storylines, he left the broadcast position. So that's going to sum up this video here. If there's any other commentators, I didn't mention every single person. This would take too long. Coming up. So there's a lot more people out there we could discuss, but maybe we'll save that for another video. But if you have anything you want to share, please post it in the comments. And this has been another great edition here of Harry Fling Wrestling. I am your host, Harry Fling. And until next time, everybody, bye-bye.